Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into some lively stories from across the US and beyond, starting with New York City. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has stepped up to empower immigrant communities by sharing their rights during ICE raids. You can refuse to talk, film agents, and stay silent if detained. It's all about protecting NYC's vibrant immigrant population and reinforcing that the city welcomes everyone. Next, we turn to the political scene where Senator John Curtis advocates for a more humane approach to immigration enforcement. He criticizes harsh policies and urges for compassion, emphasizing that a balanced, responsible strategy can foster a welcoming environment for all. It's a call for empathy amid ongoing debates on immigration law. Finally, in a more controversial vein, recent incidents of racism and aggressive immigration enforcement make headlines. A viral video shows a Wisconsin Cinnabon employee using a racial slur against Somali customers, sparking outrage. Meanwhile, authorities monitor protests and social media in New Orleans, raising concerns about community safety and transparency. These stories remind us that immigration issues are deeply personal and often heated, but dialogue and understanding are key. Please continue to watch for the full details and stay informed with us. South China Morning Post reports that Zohran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York City, took to social media to empower immigrants by informing them of their legal rights in the face of ICE raids. Mamdani's message was a rallying cry for the city's 3 million immigrant residents, emphasizing that they have the right to refuse to speak with federal immigration agents, record interactions without interference, and decline entry into private spaces without a judicial warrant. His words serve as a shield of reassurance amid recent heightened enforcement actions, including a raid in Manhattan's Chinatown that sparked protests. Mamdani's stance underscores his commitment to immigrant protection, promising to defend their rights and celebrate their contributions, even as he maintains a diplomatic tone by sharing a surprisingly cordial meeting with President Trump earlier, despite the federal crackdown on immigration enforcement. Associated Press highlights Mamdani's proactive effort to educate New Yorkers about their rights during a tense period of immigration enforcement. His social media video, released shortly after ICE attempted to detain individuals on Canal Street, reiterates that immigrants can choose not to engage with agents and can document their encounters without interference. Mamdani clarifies that ICE agents cannot enter private spaces like homes or schools without a court-issued warrant, and emphasizes the importance of asking if one is free to leave when detained. His message resonates with the community's resilience, reaffirming New York's long-standing welcoming stance towards immigrants. Mamdani's outreach, coupled with his recent meeting with President Trump, demonstrates a nuanced approach, supporting immigrant rights while navigating the complex landscape of federal immigration policies. NBC News reports that during the first 9 months of Donald Trump's presidency, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, arrested nearly 75,000 individuals with no criminal record, challenging the administration's narrative that their focus is on violent criminals. Despite claims of targeting only the worst offenders, the data reveals that more than a third of those detained lacked any criminal history, with many arrests involving minor infractions like traffic violations. This discrepancy has sparked criticism from policy analysts, highlighting that the enforcement efforts are far broader than the administration admits, and that the overall arrest rate falls significantly short of internal goals, raising questions about the efficiency and fairness of the crackdown. The data also shows that ICE and Border Patrol agents have detained many U.S. citizens, including children, and have been accused of racial profiling, especially targeting Latinos, amid a surge in funding that has dramatically increased enforcement activities. Yahoo US features Senator John Curtis's call for a more compassionate approach to immigration amid the aggressive Trump-era crackdown, emphasizing that empathy and law enforcement are not mutually exclusive. Curtis criticizes the prevailing narrative that the country cannot balance compassion with the rule of law, urging Americans to reflect on their personal contributions toward making immigrants feel welcome. His comments come at a time when the Trump administration has intensified its rhetoric and actions against Somali immigrants in Minnesota, with officials like White House border czar Tom Homan defending the crackdown and denying that arrests are based on appearance. Curtis advocates for a deliberate effort to foster community trust and reduce fear, asserting that the political climate, driven by disruption and tough policies, has created unnecessary anxiety among immigrant populations, despite many being long-standing U.S. citizens. The Independent reports on the startling revelation that over one-third of the roughly 222,000 arrests made by ICE in the first 9 months of Trump's presidency involved individuals with no criminal history, contradicting claims that the crackdown primarily targets dangerous criminals. Data obtained through a lawsuit shows that about 75,000 of those detained lacked any prior criminal record, and the agency's arrest rate averaged around 824 per day, far below its internal target of 3,000. This enforcement pattern has led to the detention of many U.S. citizens and people with minor infractions, raising concerns about racial profiling and the broad scope of immigration enforcement. The report underscores that despite significant investments, $170 billion allocated to ICE and Border Patrol, the effort has resulted in widespread detentions, many of which have been criticized for their fairness and impact on communities, especially Latinos. The Associated Press reports on the tense and secretive online and on-the-ground monitoring efforts by law enforcement during the immigration crackdown in New Orleans. Authorities are meticulously tracking social media and message boards, watching for threats and public sentiment, while also gathering intelligence on protests and community reactions. Despite their efforts, officials have released limited details about the arrests, fueling concerns among local leaders who argue that the operation is more about instilling fear and perpetuating stereotypes of immigrants as violent criminals, rather than targeting actual threats. The records reveal a focus on social media chatter, with some officials warning that the surveillance and threat of charges could chill free speech and peaceful protests, especially as videos of agents chasing U.S. citizens and families evoke emotional responses. Meanwhile, cooperation among federal and state agencies is intensively coordinated through intelligence centers to monitor activist discussions and potential threats, but no concrete threats to law enforcement have been identified. The Independent details a disturbing incident at a Wisconsin Cinnabon, where a worker was caught on video using racist slurs and openly declaring her racism toward Somali customers. The viral footage prompted swift action from the company, which confirmed the employee's immediate firing, emphasizing their commitment to dignity and respect. The incident comes amid heightened political rhetoric, with former President Donald Trump making disparaging remarks about Somali immigrants, claiming they contribute nothing and are a drain on resources, which echoes the racist undertones seen in the viral video. This rhetoric is further amplified by ICE operations targeting Somali communities, such as in Minneapolis, where arrests have been made, including U.S. citizens of Somali descent, stirring fears and anxiety among residents about racial profiling and citizenship questions. The convergence of hate speech and aggressive immigration enforcement underscores the ongoing struggles faced by immigrant communities and the dangerous narratives fueling hostility and discrimination. Rosie O'Donnell's personal story, as covered by The Independent, highlights her efforts to detach from the toxic political environment in the U.S. by moving to Ireland, where she reports feeling healthier and sleeping better without the constant stress of American politics. Her decision was influenced by her ongoing feud with Donald Trump, who has publicly attacked her and even suggested revoking her citizenship. Despite her attempts to step back from social media and political debates, O'Donnell's outspoken nature persists, especially when Trump's rhetoric targets her or her community. Her move abroad symbolizes a desire for safety and peace, yet her connection to the American political drama remains strong, illustrating how personal and political conflicts are intertwined. Her story reflects the broader struggles of many Americans seeking refuge from divisive politics, and her candid reflections reveal the toll that such conflicts take on mental health and well-being in a polarized nation. The BBC reports on the evolving political landscape in Scotland, focusing on the rise of Reform UK and its efforts to establish a foothold in Holyrood. Lord Malcolm Offord, a former Conservative minister and Tory treasurer, has publicly declared his switch to Reform, criticising his former party for abandoning Scotland and expressing a desire to run as a Reform MSP. His candidacy, although not yet official, is seen as a strategic move to challenge other party leaders and bring a fresh face to the party's Scottish campaign. The party's focus appears to be on issues like immigration, net zero policies, and deindustrialization, with Nigel Farage's influence remaining dominant despite internal disagreements and controversies surrounding comments about Glasgow school children and accusations of racism. The Scottish arm of Reform is developing its identity, aiming to disrupt traditional politics, but faces scrutiny over its association with Farage and its controversial stance on immigration and cultural issues, which could influence the upcoming Holyrood elections. The Independent delves into the personal and political turmoil surrounding Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, and her family's complicated history. Her brother, Michael Levitt, publicly denounces a recent report by the Washington Post that details his relationship with Bruna Ferreira, the mother of his child and a Brazilian immigrant detained by ICE. Ferreira, who entered the U.S. as a child under DACA, maintains her innocence and criticizes the White House's portrayal of her as an absent mother and a criminal, emphasizing her active role in her son's life. The report reveals a fractured relationship and a contentious custody battle, with accusations of abuse and neglect from both sides. Ferreira's arrest has ignited national debates about immigration enforcement and the treatment of undocumented immigrants, especially those connected to prominent political figures. Her story underscores the complex intersection of family, immigration law, and political narratives, highlighting the human toll behind the headlines. CBC covers the urgent calls from Thunder Bay firefighters for stronger health protections against cancer, a leading cause of line-of-duty deaths among firefighters. Despite recent legislative improvements, firefighters argue that Ontario's presumptive legislation still falls short, especially in cases involving catastrophic events like industrial fires or wildfires, where exposure to carcinogens can be sudden and intense. Firefighters advocate for expanded coverage that includes early screening and protection for newer personnel facing immediate risks. The emotional toll of losing colleagues to work-related cancers fuels their push for change, with many demanding that the government act swiftly to update laws. Politicians like Lise Vogiois emphasize the need for immediate legislative action, criticizing bureaucratic delays and highlighting the importance of safeguarding those who put their lives on the line. The ongoing efforts aim to prevent future tragedies and ensure that firefighters receive the comprehensive health protections they deserve, especially given the unique risks faced in Northern Ontario's challenging environment. The Chicago Tribune reports a tense and chaotic scene in Elgin, Illinois, where federal immigration agents used tear gas and pepper spray on a crowd protesting a man's arrest. The incident began when agents responded to a traffic crash involving a federal officer, leading to the arrest of an unidentified man inside an apartment. As the crowd grew increasingly agitated, some protesters threw snowballs and yelled at the agents, who responded by dispersing chemical irritants and grenades into the crowd, causing widespread discomfort and anger among residents. Witnesses described the scene as unnecessarily aggressive, with one woman recalling the pepper spray lingering on her clothes for hours. Critics argue that the heavy-handed tactics escalated tensions, with body camera footage capturing agents' apparent glee in deploying chemical weapons against civilians, raising concerns about the federal government's approach to immigration enforcement and community relations. Meanwhile, the South China Morning Post highlights Japan's ongoing struggle with cultural integration and rising right-wing nationalism, exemplified by a viral video of a lawmaker opposing Muslim burial rites. Mizuho Yumamura, a member of the Sansito Party, argued that Japan's traditional cremation customs should remain unchallenged, citing land shortages and health concerns as reasons to reject Muslim burial grounds. Her remarks ignited online debates about Japan's capacity to embrace its growing Muslim population, which has expanded from 30,000 in 1990 to approximately 350,000 today. Despite efforts to accommodate foreign residents, such as prayer rooms in schools, reactionary politicians continue to stoke fears of cultural dilution, exemplified by a failed attempt to establish a Muslim cemetery in Oita Prefecture, halted by local authorities citing public health issues. Experts warn that such rhetoric, rooted in nationalism and insecurity, undermines Japan's reputation as an inclusive society and hampers its ability to adapt to demographic changes. Finally, The Independent reports a surge of blame from former President Donald Trump and Republican officials over a stabbing incident in Charlotte, North Carolina, involving an undocumented immigrant. The attacker, Oscar Solorzano, a Honduran national previously deported, allegedly stabbed a fellow passenger on a city light rail train, leaving the victim in stable condition. Trump quickly linked the attack to Democratic policies, claiming that illegal migrants are responsible for rising crime and criticizing local authorities for allegedly not cooperating with immigration enforcement. The incident follows another high-profile stabbing of a Ukrainian refugee earlier in the year, which also drew Republican accusations of lax crime policies. Despite a significant decline in overall crime rates in Charlotte, political figures continue to politicize immigration issues, with the Trump administration deploying additional immigration agents to the city amid ongoing tensions over border security and public safety. The Associated Press reports that a federal judge has decisively rejected the Trump administration's attempt to dismiss a lawsuit challenging the detention of migrants at Guantanamo Bay, a move that underscores the ongoing legal battle over immigration policies. Judge Sparkle L. Suknanen's ruling on Friday not only denied the government's motion but also set a hearing for the following week to determine the next steps. Under President Trump's administration, announced in January, Guantanamo was repurposed as a detention hub for what was termed the worst criminal aliens, with around 500 immigrants held there between February and June, serving as a transit point for those with final removal orders. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, which filed the suit, along with other advocacy groups, contends that transporting immigrants to Guantanamo is illegal, challenging the Trump administration's assertion of broad authority to detain deportable immigrants at the facility. Historically infamous for housing detainees post 9/11, Guantanamo's current use for immigrant detention marks a controversial chapter in its storied history, raising questions about legality and human rights amid the government's assertions of executive power. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Turn on the TV screen, see the world unseen. China's on the news tonight, history in the spotlight. Scroll through my phone again, find out where to begin. Stories from the east to west, learning from the very best. News in China every day, learning in a fun new way. From the cities to the farms, feel the heartbeat, feel the charm. Ancient tales in modern times, mountains high and river rhymes. Culture rich in every town, golden driving never down. Every headline a new friend, from beginning to the end, connecting hearts through every word. China's story always heard. News in China every day, learning a fun new way. From the cities to the farms, feel the heartbeat, feel the charm. Every headline a new friend, from beginning to the end, connecting hearts through every word.